Hello and welcome to Fog in the Channel, the podcast on Brexit as seen from the continent. My name is Stefan de Vries. I'm a European journalist, usually based in Paris, but this week I'm in London. I just arrived at St. Pancras Station, and the last time I was here was about 100 days ago, and today there are exactly 100 days left till Brexit. So I decided to jump on the Eurostar to check the mood in London. In this episode, I'll meet Simon Smits. He's the Dutch ambassador to the UK, and the Netherlands is one of Britain's oldest and closest partners. And I'll ask him how Brexit is going to affect the Dutch. And then there's some music in Brexit. Who would have thought? The Breunion Boys is a new European band begging Britain to come back. And I'll be talking to their creator, Julia Veldman, in Amsterdam. And I'm also going to have a cup of tea with Marc Roche. He's a Belgian Born journalist who was a Remainer before the referendum, but he has now changed his mind and his nationality, and he's a Brit and a Brexiteer. And I will visit him in his cosy house in Notting Hill.
We cannot aim at anything less than the union of Europe as a whole, and we look forward with confidence to the day when that union will be achieved.
Mind the gap.
I'm walking in Hyde Park. It's a lovely day here in London, clear blue sky, and I'm going to the Royal Dutch Embassy. Not because I'm Dutch, but because the Netherlands is one of the most important trading partners of the UK in the European Union. There are also a lot of Anglo-Dutch companies, for instance, Unilever or Shell. And I would like to know, what is the impact of Brexit on the Netherlands, on its economy, but also on its trade relations with the UK? And of course also, what are the opportunities? And for that reason, I'm having a meeting now with the ambassador, Simon Smits.
Goedemorgen. Ik heb een afspraak met Simon Smits. Stefan de Vries.
Hello, Mr. Smits. Thank you for receiving me here. You're the ambassador of probably one of the oldest, one of the closest allies of the UK, not only geographically, but also historically, economically, and maybe even mentally. The relations between the Netherlands and the UK have always been excellent, or at least they have been since the end of the 17th century. You arrived here in 2015, and it was very quiet then, I assume. Then suddenly, in the night of June 23rd, 2016, when the result of the referendum became clear, all changed. How was that?
Well, I went to bed around about 2 o'clock, I think. And I thought what people had told me, well, it will probably be a pro-EU, a Remain vote. And lo and behold, I woke up, I think, 6:30 in the morning, and then the final results came in, and of course it had turned the other way. Yeah, so that was a bit of a surprise.
That's a diplomatic understatement, I assume.
Well, I think we made no secret in the Netherlands that obviously we were very sad to see the UK wanting to leave the EU, because we're, as you said, we're close, we're like-minded partners, trade partners, but also if you look at, for instance, rule of law, we see eye to eye on a lot of things. And at the same time, obviously, we have to respect that decision. It's a democratic decision, so if that's the way the UK wants to go, then there's nothing else that we can do but respect that.
Yeah. Now, the Netherlands is one of the most important trade partners of the UK.
And investors.
And investors as well. Mm-hmm. How are you going to, or how are you dealing with, well, it's hard to say preparations, because you can prepare for many things, but things are going not really, you know.
Well, exactly. Preparations, I think planning is probably the best action one can take against uncertainty. And there is, of course, lingering uncertainty, because nobody knows what the near future will bring and how the vote will go. and what the various options are. There's a lot of speculation, but I don't think it makes much sense to just keep on speculating. It's better to prepare for any outcome, and that is exactly, of course, what we are doing.
Yeah, did it change your work as an ambassador since the referendum 2 years ago?
Well, yes, I think without exaggeration, you can say that a lot of the work is now Brexit related, and this goes for our contacts, obviously, with politicians, parliamentarians, but also business people here. Also Dutch citizens. We have about 150,000 Dutch passport holders in the UK, and many of them are worried about their status, whether they can bring their mother over from the Netherlands, or whether they can take their British partners back to the Netherlands with them. What about children? Some of them have British passports, some of them Dutch passports. Even within families, there's different passports. So what we do is inform them. We have information evenings all over the country. They are live streamed. We, of course, are following developments very closely. And that, of course, is all Brexit related. Yes.
Yeah. Are the Dutch citizens living here worried, or how do they react?
Yes, they are. There's an organization called the 3 Million. They represent the 3 million EU passport holders in this country. And a number of them, of course, are Dutch. So I regularly meet with a number of Dutch ladies who are also in contact with the Dutch Parliament, with Dutch politicians. Of course, also here with British politicians. They go to Brussels because they want answers to their questions. And of course, until we have an agreement, there is no absolute certainty on what will happen with citizens' rights. Yeah. And the same, of course, goes for British citizens in the EU and in the Netherlands.
Yeah. How many British citizens are there in the Netherlands? Have you heard?
I think it's around about 50 to 60,000. I don't know the exact number. And here, I must say, our estimate is 150,000, but there's, of course, no obligation to register here. There's no central registration of citizens here in the UK. But we extrapolate from, for instance, the number of passports that we hand out over a year.
Yeah, I saw that this week you presided a ceremony of British people becoming Dutch.
Naturalization ceremony, yes, that's correct, yes.
Are there more and more Brits than before who apply for a Dutch passport?
Yes, we see a rise in those numbers, and you're right, we had about 40 Brits opting for Dutch nationality, for instance, because they have Dutch family relations, a Dutch mother, and so they can opt for Dutch nationality without losing their British citizenship, and they can obtain a Dutch passport. And when I speak to them, many see it as a kind of, you could say, insurance policy.
Yeah. Now, what would be the economic impact on the Netherlands being one of the most important trading partners of the UK?
Well, that depends very much on the outcome. So it's very hard to predict. There was a recent report in the Netherlands that we stand to lose, I think, over the coming years, 2.3 billion euros in case of a no-deal scenario. It's all scenario planning, of course. One former finance minister, Jeroen Dijsselbloem, has said this is only a lose-lose option. So nobody will get the better for it. But again, it very much depends on what deal we will end up with in the end. Now,
there are also, I assume, opportunities with Brexit. Is there an upside, according to you?
Well, many people said to me when the Netherlands got the European Medicines Agency, they said, well, you must profit from this enormously with these 800 or 900 highly qualified people and the spin-off, etc. And my honest answer is, well, it's a thin silver lining on an otherwise dark cloud. And this should in no way feel like a victory or whatever. We are worried, of course, about any adverse consequences, and that's why we are planning, for instance, in customs, we are hiring extra customs officials, we are informing Dutch companies. We have special arrangements now that companies can get advice on their supply chain with Brexit vouchers, etc. We've opened websites. So we're doing everything in our power to at least prepare Dutch citizens and also Dutch businesses for what is to come.
Yeah. Now, one of the consequences of the UK leaving the European Union is the fact that the Dutch diplomatic service will be enlarged, and especially in Europe. Is that a direct consequence of the UK leaving Brexit, or what's going to happen exactly?
Well, if I talk for my team here in the embassy, yes, we will see more people coming in. For instance, customs. We had already people in cooperating very closely with the British police forces and the National Crime Agency, for instance. We have also had extra people for the the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency, because if there are companies in the UK who are thinking of setting up, for instance, a subsidiary abroad or on the continent, it's obvious that we would like them to settle in the Netherlands if they have a choice.
Yeah, of course. But in Brussels, do you think the dynamics at the table of the 27 will change when the UK is no longer there? And then particularly regarding the Dutch position?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question to answer because they're now still a member, of course, and nobody can predict exactly what the dynamics will be. So yes, it might be that we will have to forge other or new alliances, but it's not that we're, one against many. I think there's many like-minded states within the European Union that see eye to eye on a number of the issues that I just mentioned. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Now, on a more personal note, you're also a Londoner since 4 years.
Yeah, right.
You're overlooking the beautiful Hyde Park. You're an avid runner, I've understood.
Well, I'm avid, but but not a very good one. I don't run as often as I should or would like. I do my running, and we recently set up a running club so that we run during the lunch hour or some lunch hours with a number of colleagues from the embassy.
Yeah, and what's your opinion as a Londoner, as a citizen living in this beautiful capital on Brexit? Has the city changed? What do you like? What do you love?
Well, I love and will keep on loving London. Obviously, what I do see, of course, is over the past years that a lot of the political time and energy and discussion here has been devoted to Brexit. What I also see is, of course, that it's a very divisive issue in Parliament, within parties, between generations, in families, and that, of course, whatever happens after the 29th of March, that the country will have to come to terms with this division, and sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and you started as an English teacher once in a very long time.
Yeah.
So the love for the English language and the Brits goes way back. Don't you feel, just like me, I'm a big Anglophile, don't you feel a little bit maybe betrayed in your love for these islands?
I wouldn't say betrayed, and as I
disappointed?
said... No, well, yes, maybe a bit, but I mean, what I personally feel is pretty irrelevant. What I think is more important is to look to the future, and for me as an ambassador here, what I see, of course, in the near future, it's highly likely that the more or less automatic contacts via Brussels will disappear. The councils, the high-level working groups, the committees, etc. And I worked in Brussels for 5 years myself. That will go. That will disappear. And it's our task and my task to fill that vacuum on a bilateral basis and to make sure that we keep all those links and strengthen them. And that's also partly why, of course, we get an extension of the staff in this embassy, because it will be more and harder work for us to get those contacts going or to keep them going.
Yeah. And for the time being, you will stay in this beautiful city.
I hope so. I sincerely hope so.
Okay. Thank you very much, Simon Smits.
You're most welcome.